Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. Just catching up on the old Bible. Anyways, let's get started with today. Today, Lap 2, Day 3 homework. We are talking about revealed law. Excuse me. Old and new. Life in Jesus, Lap 2. So, as we talk about natural law in the previous class, this question kind of comes up, and it's why was natural law not enough? Well, again, I encourage you, watch the news. Because of original sin, because of our concupiscence, though we were created to have the law in our hearts, our ability to know and to understand natural law is clouded. And so Catholics believe God continues to reveal moral law, it continues to reveal how to live through Scripture and tradition. So today we're going to look specifically at Scripture and the way that God revealed the path to love, the path to fulfillment, the path to living as who we were created to be through Scripture. It's pretty short today. I think there's only 2 slides after this. Okay, we'll go now. So the revealed law in the Bible is made up of 2 parts, Old Law and New Law. I challenge you to guess which testament each of those comes from. Old Law comes from the Old Testament. Pretty straightforward. It's the moral law revealed in the Old Testament. And the purpose, if you read through the Bible, as I was doing at the beginning of this video, you see a story of God creating people to live in loving relationship, and you see those people turning away. And so the purpose of the Old Law is it's meant to restore that loving communion. It's meant to restore humanity to that original purpose of living in loving relationship with God and one another. So it's teaching them how to live in loving relationship. This is the first stage of God's revelations, preparation for the gospel. But think about the 10 Commandments. So the Decalogue is sometimes referred to, another name for the 10 Commandments. Think about those laws. They're all pretty simple, right? Honor your father and mother. Do not kill. Do not steal. Do not commit adultery. Don't be jealous. Don't bear false witness. Put God first. Keep holy the Sabbath, right? Simple things that allow us to live in loving relationship with God and other. It's almost like the streamlined top 10 ways to live in loving relationship with God and one another. That's what you would see if you went. That's what you would see if the excuse me, if the Decalogue were an internet article today. And the Decalogue, because it states natural law's main precepts, because it's in some ways very simple, it puts the law very simple, but it also concisely talks about how to live in loving relationships. It's still a framework for Christian morality today. Our textbook, the Catechism of the Catholic Church, use it as a framework to talk about how to live a good life. But the Old Law focuses on external actions, right? The focus is on what you do, not so much who you are or where your heart is. And that's what's going to come into play here on the next page. Be ready for a question. So that brings us to the new law. And the new law, you guessed it, is the moral law revealed by Jesus in the New Testament. And this is meant to fulfill, perfect, and redefine the old law. See, the problem with the old law is that people like the Pharisees came and they focused on all these external actions, but they weren't focused on where their hearts were. Right? They focused on, I'll say that again, they focused on external actions, but not on where their hearts were. So Jesus comes in the New Testament, and in the Sermon on the Mount, that's where he gives the greatest amount of the teaching of the new law. He presents the Beatitudes, which is a new set of ideals. So again, what does the world say is important? It says that, if you're powerful, if you are famous, if you have a lot of money. And Jesus says, blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are the merciful, blessed are those who mourn, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. He's telling us, right, you could be powerful and rich and famous, and you could still follow many of these precepts of the Ten Commandments. Jesus is saying it's not so much about those external actions, it's about who you are on the inside. He focuses on interior actions. There are a few times in the Sermon on the Mount that he takes one of the Old Testament laws and kind of redefines it. He has said, "You've heard that it was said, 'Thou shalt not murder.' But I say to you, do not even hold anger in your heart. You have heard that it was said, 'Do not commit adultery.' But I say to you, do not look at another person with lust." Right? That's a lot harder. He raises the bar by focusing on interior action, by saying, well, it's not just living a good life is not just simply not murdering someone or not committing adultery. It's about having a heart that loves purely and that forgives others. Finally, that brings us to the greatest commandments. The foundation of the new law is love. And that's what Jesus ultimately says. He says these laws are not so much about the rules. They're not so much about the actions. They're about love. You should love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And in these two statements, Jesus basically sums up those 10 commandments. The first 3 have to do with God. 4 through 10 have to do with how you should treat your neighbor. And he basically sums those up. Love God with all your heart, love your neighbor as yourself. And if we really lived that way, we wouldn't have the issues that we have. Anyways, that is it for today. I encourage you to open up your own Bibles and read them if you would like to read about the way Jesus redefines the old law, but you're probably not going to do that. I look forward to discussing this in class with you. And as always, like, comment, and subscribe.